Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Niagara Falls Experience, episode 22. And otherwise known as the episode in which Nico has completely lost his mind.
I thought that was every episode.
Yeah, I think that was episode 3. But as always, I am Nico, your American person. What is my official title on this? The Grand Poobah Americano?
Grand Poobah of American hosting of tourism stuff. I don't know. Whatever works. But you're the token American. How's that?
I'm the token American. So what is the Canadian equivalent?
Canadian, it is, you're right. What's a Grand Poobah in that? It might be the czar. The czar of Canadian tourism stuff. How's that?
The czar of Canadian tourism stuff and the Grand Poobah token American.
Yep, sounds good to me. I'm going with that. All in favor, say aye. Okay, any opposed? Abstentions? Motion passed. There you go. There's like a parliament, eh?
We don't allow parliament in this time.
Have you ever watched the Canadian Parliament, Nico?
I have. It's just a wee bit ridiculous. Not nearly as ridiculous as the American Congress, but quite and a different kind of ridiculousness, I would suppose.
Oh, no. A parliament is... it's like watching the monkey cage at the zoo. They heckle each other. They insult each other. I mean, it's hilarious. And, you know, there was a famous British statesman who once said, people who love sausage and respect the law should never watch either one being made.
I mean, that is a great description of politics in general, I suppose. We still never answered any of our questions. Why am I dressed like this, Peter?
Yes, okay, let me ask you then. Nico, why are you dressed like that?
Because it's Wednesday.
Oh, that explains it.
But no, in all seriousness, I just spent a day over in Niagara Falls State Park.
He's saying, in all seriousness, dressed like that.
In all seriousness, my boys, I was out adventuring in Niagara Falls State Park, heading down to the Cave of the Winds Gorge, walk around the Terrapin, over to Stedman's Bluff, and all of that wonder. But yeah, no, I was over in the state park today doing some parky-related stuff, a little bit of tour guiding, a little bit of customer talking, a little bit of guest satisfaction words. This is very good. The other thing you may notice is that my lips are cherry red right now, and that's because I have been baking in the sun a little bit. But it really was a fun day, which goes back to why I was baking in the sun a little bit. It is 70 degrees out right now here in Niagara Falls, which is highly unusual.
That's warm. I like it. I actually went out today with a sweatshirt on, like a hoodie, which I normally wear because it's the spring. And then all of a sudden I had to take it off, and I realized I was only wearing a T-shirt underneath, not our usual polo shirts. But it felt so good to be out there with nothing.
Yeah,
I mean, that would be naked. No, with a T-shirt. Yay.
Yeah, I started this morning, I was wearing a Sherpa-lined coat. It is still cold in the mornings. That's a pro Niagara Falls tip. It's always a little bit cool in the morning due to just like the mist, and it's always colder by the falls compared to farther away from the falls. Like I always say, subtract 15 degrees from whatever you're feeling at the hotel. It's generally good advice. Not 15 degrees Celsius. It's not that nightmarishly cold. That would be dangerous.
Yes, yeah.
Make sure
you always get that clear, because my countrymen might think, or wonder, or...
So we free solid when we walk out the door?
Yeah.
Some
days we do.
You cross the state park boundary and suddenly you just freeze in place.
Help me. Hold that, boy.
Help me.
Oil can what? That's my favorite line from the Wizard of Oz. When when he's like, oil can, and oil can what? So.
But yes, it is a crazy beautiful day out. This week is supposed to be really, really nice. It's going to be almost 80 degrees on Saturday.
Wow.
Which is really exciting, because guess what's happening Saturday, Peter?
Oh, yes, it's the anniversary of the Titanic. No.
No, that's Friday.
I believe that a certain boat, not the Titanic, is going into the water. Is that correct?
I think that's the reason they're not operating on Friday. that might actually be the real reason, is because opening on the day that the Titanic might. I think you might be onto something, Peter. But no, in all actual exciting news, the unofficial official word, which means there's no such thing as official word until it's actually operating, but the Maid of the Mist is expected to be operating starting this Saturday, which, much like the Groundhog, means that it is officially summer. So Groundhog gives us spring, the Maid of the Mist boat gives us summer. I'm not sure if the Maid of the Mist boat saw its shadow. I think it did, which is why it took a couple more weeks. I think that's how it works. I'm not sure. My boat speak is a little rusty.
Boat speak. Well, you and I were talking before the show, and one of the things we wanted to kind of share, this has been something of a problem for the last little while for the people here. Obviously, the Maid of the Mist is not operating on the American side. There's several, it's almost like a perfect storm of difficulties that has led to this. But I wanted to share something that you and I were looking at earlier. And these are some pictures I took last year on April 1st. And this was the Niagara Gorge on April 1st. I'm going to get the first picture up here. So there it is. April 1st, you're looking from the observation deck. And you can see the entire gorge is filled with ice. It's an ice jam. Here's another example, just a little bit same position. Going to put in a couple more for you. But last year, we actually had an equally moderate winter, if you remember, until late March. And then the ice jam started or occurred, and that really messed things up. So there you are looking back towards, you can see the Canadian, their Niagara City cruises, their docks are kind of in the middle there on the edge of the white horizon. And this is what it looked like on April 1st last year. So when people see that, they realize that there's no way there's going to be boats in the water at that point. And so Maid of the Mist has traditionally been around May 1st. And sometimes it's been earlier, sometimes it's been later. But this year, because we did not have this sudden rush of ice that we're looking at, like we did last year, here it is with the Skylon Tower in front of it. Because we didn't have this year, then the Canadians were able to get their boat into the water relatively quickly, almost a month ago, actually a month ago tomorrow. And was it a month or, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 4 weeks. But anyway, that's what the gorge looked like on April 1st last year. And you can imagine with things like that, you don't even think of putting your boats in the water. The ice and debris would damage them badly. And so the thinking is that, like, the Canadians jumped in this year because they saw an opportunity. And with the American side, they were somewhat behind. I don't think they had the same, I'm not sure if it was, what would you call it, motivation or anyone
So
out
it
there?
really wasn't that. There's actually, so the fascinating thing about the Canadian and the American side can be figured out just by looking at their docks. The Canadian dock is sort of an all-in-one docking scenario. So their dry dock is attached to their main dock, and their floating dock and cranes are all connected to each other. So what that means is there's multiple docks. If you ever come here to Niagara Falls and you're deciding to ride the boat, pay attention to this. There is what's known as a pad, so that's a concrete chunk. It's what we would normally consider a dock. It's this very large area made out of concrete. In front of that, you'll see that there's this little floaty bit. Usually it has like a long piece on it that you walk, and it moves up and down based on the water level. You'll see it's floating in the water. It's literally called a floating dock. And there's a long walkway. It's known as a gangway in boating terms. And that's what you walk on to get onto the boats. Now, when you're on the Canadian side, that gangway and that pad and everything is in this big giant area, and on the American side it's a little bit of a smaller pad just based on the geography and how it was built out. Where it gets really interesting though is that floating dock and those gangways have to be removed during winter. Otherwise the ice flows that you were seeing like last year would rip them clean off of the pad. The concrete can handle the ice, it's concrete, it can be okay. It needs patchwork every once in a while, but That's not the issue. The issue is the floating dock. And of course the boats can't stay in the water because that ice would damage the boats. So the boats are always plucked out of the water and put onto what's known as a dry dock. And a dry dock is exactly what it sounds like. It's a docking area for the boat that is not in the water. It's dry. There's slip style and there's cranes. The Canadian one's actually ramped so they can kind of bring it up using a crane and almost like a tow truck. The American side's a little bit different because that crane is not located on the main pad. The dry dock is at the old Sholkoff geologic site, the old Sholkoff ruins of the power plant. That is their new dry docking site. So they have a large pad to put the boats on. They physically lift them out of the water and drop them onto the pad, kind of like a claw machine trying to get a lovely little stuffed toy. So what happens is the Canadian boat, as soon as you get that clearance from, say, that usually the power authority who controls the water intake, the water intakes also controls the ice boom. As soon as the ice boom is lifted and they say, okay, there's no more ice in the river, you're cleared, what the Canadians will do is they have the crane directly on their dock and they'll just lift, they'll assemble their floating dock right there using that crane, they'll slide their boat right down the ramp into the water and they're ready to go. Because of the American side where the dry dock is different than the main dock, they actually have to use the crane at the dry dock to put the boats in, and then they have a portable crane that is basically like on a pontoon that they have to bring over and tow the floating dock over and do all those attachments, which is what they were doing at the end of last week and beginning of this week. Actually, I will take that back. They started that this week. I actually went over to Sholkoff on Monday and I watched, they actually posted their videos on Made in the Mist social media account of them lifting the boats, but they also had to lift the floating dock and all those pieces off of that dock at Sholkoff. And then had to move all of that and has been spending the week assembling all of that together to get it ready. The reason they were going to do all of this about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. However, as we discussed last week, the power outage in the state park that started exactly 2 weeks ago. It was 2 weeks and a day. It was 3 Tuesdays ago. So it was, 2 weeks, we'll say 15 days ago, the power went out in the state park. It was not restored until last Friday. So last Friday they started moving, but it was also a holiday weekend. It was Easter. By the way, happy belated Easter, Peter.
Yes, thank you, and you too.
We'll have to talk about what we did on. Maybe we'll talk about what we did on Easter later in the show. I was waiting for a boat. I missed my boat. But no, because of the power outage plus the holiday, they started working on Dingus Day Monday. I'm Polish, so I can talk about Dingus Day. I love Dingus Day. Didn't do anything though. I was busy waiting for my boats. But they were able to get some of that work done, and then it went into unofficially, kind of jokingly called sea trials. The boats are seaworthy; they don't need to actually go through sea trials, but they do go through research and things, and that takes a day or two. And it's just the Coast Guard double checking them, going, "Okay, you are fit for human consumption. The FDA is stamping you, Grade A Angus." Wait, wrong department. We're going to stamp you as you are fit for passengers. You are Grade A awesome. Get in the water. And so that's what's been happening, and all of that is lined up perfectly. So the official word is that it will be Saturday. If you're watching this in the future and it was not on Saturday, it's not my fault. I'm going on what I was told. Going on what we were all told. So actually the Made of the Mist is really wonderful. They pretty much contact all of the local tourism players here to let us, especially the ones that utilize the Maid, so things like tour companies and those large groups, to let them know, hey, this is our expected start day. And so the expected start day right now is unofficially, officially, and we could say unofficially, officially, which I'll continue to say, because it's in the water. I saw the boat myself. Peter saw it earlier today. It's in the water. The docks are assembled. It's there. It's ready to go.
I believe it. I saw it with my own hands.
Yeah, so it will be hopefully Saturday, which is really great because it's supposed to be 80 degrees on Saturday. So 80 degrees and a boat ride in April. Hey, this is exciting.
Awesome. That's awesome. And it's a tough world for them because they do, as you said, they ascribe to Canadian and American Coast Guard regulations. I worked in Toronto Harbor for a number of years, and I've been up and down the Great Lakes, and I've been on when those inspections take place, and they make sure everything is in place. They count your life jackets. They do everything to get you ready for the season. And then you have to have drills, etc., in front of them. So I know the Maid has a very, very professional crew. So it's one of the reasons why Maid of the Mist has not had, to my knowledge, an incident in its entire history, like an accident.
No, so like accidents or anything of the sort, no. And the boat has been operating continuously since 1846, save for the Civil War and Captain Robinson's wild ride. My favorite story of all time. That really is. I love Captain Robinson's wild. Like that is.
We'll have to cover that one week.
We really do. Yes. If you keep tuning in for episodes, and eventually I'm going to tell you all about Captain Joel Robinson and the most American boat story I could possibly think of. One of these days we need to cover the Michigan. You know the story of the Michigan, right?
Yes.
But you want to cover that today? You want to talk about the Michigan?
If you want to. That was the one that they put over with, was that, or was it the Carolyn had the animals on it?
No, that was the Michigan.
Yeah, the Michigan. And the character that I played at the state parks, Augustus Porter, played a role in making that happen. I think that's a great thing to talk about, the Scooter Michigan. If you've got any input, folks, those of you who are watching, you don't just have to call in. You can pipe in on the comments, and we'll make sure we include your comments on in our discussion as well. But yeah, the Schooner Michigan. Well, you're getting the start on it. I'm going to see if I can find some pictures.
Righto, sounds good. First, I'm just going to give a shout out to some of our watchers today. Hello, Lisa, Nick, John. John says hi. Miss you all. Miss you too, John. Marissa, Janelle, Angela. Angela was on our Herschel show. That was a lot of fun. We're hoping to have her back at some point because she's just so fun. She's just so much energy in this. One of these days, I got to share a photo. After that episode was done, we actually got a private ride on the Herschel 1917. yeah, the kids spinning the teacup.
Oh, man, that was wild.
That was a lot. But Angela and I were riding side by side on horses while I'm holding a camera recording the kids spinning the teacup. That was one of our best. That was 2 episodes ago. So if you look over episode 20 at the Herschel Carousel Museum in North Tonawanda to see what we're talking about. I recommend you do if you haven't watched that episode. After this is over, all of our previous episodes are right here on the Your Niagara Falls Experience Facebook page. It's a really great episode. It's really worth it because that's a hidden gem in Niagara County, and I'm going to go there too many times to count. I could spend another hour nerding out about it. But let's talk about the Michigan. The first epic stunt of Niagara.
Now, this is important. If you are an animal lover, remember, we are not glorifying what happened here.
Yeah.
It's actually macabre, and it's pretty sad, too. But go on, because there's so much to this.
Yeah, I think my favorite part is Angela is live sharing this story right now in the comments, which is really good because half the time I can't get my facts straight. And Angela, it was funny. We asked a bunch of tour guides around here, and some of them knew the story, but they didn't know the name. Angela knew she knew the name, she knew when it was, she knew why it was, she knew how many, like all of it, because it's Angela, what can we say? But the great thing about the Michigan, by great, I mean horrifyingly weird. You have to understand, it was the 1800s. And in order to get entertainment in the 1800s, you had to create your own. I mean, this was before the days of TikTok and Instagram and, I don't know, television. It's before the days of radio. Before the days Peter roamed the earth. I mean, it's even older than Peter. That's how old this story is.
This is older than me.
It's older than Peter, guys. But no, so there was a decommissioned schooner, nice big little boat, schooner, by the name of the Michigan. And what they decided in their infinite wisdom, this was 1827, if I am correct. If I am wrong, one of the tour guides will immediately correct me in the podcast. But it was 1827, and they decided they were going to do a publicity stunt, so they announced to everyone that the pirate ship Michigan was going to be sent over the falls, loaded with a safari's worth of wild animals. See, it's all coming together. A safari's worth of wild animals are going to be sent over the brink of the Horseshoe Falls for your entertainment. Did I mention there's pirates on the boat, too? In reality, there wasn't pirates on the boat. It was an old decommissioned schooner that they decorated up to look like a pirate ship. They put some dummies on top that were dressed like pirates. And inside was less of a safari and more of 2 bears, a buffalo, some geese, and a bunch of other animals that you would find in the forests here in western New York. And they towed the boat over to Navy Island and let her loose. The boat got caught in the rapids, it started spinning, it hit a rock and gutted itself open, at which point 2 of the bears deciding, yeah, this isn't a good idea. The 2 bears jumped off and swam over to Goat Island. The rest of the animals, unfortunately, were not as lucky. Most of them were in true 1820s horrible person fashion, chained to the boat. And the boat eventually found itself careening over the Horseshoe Falls. The only other animal other than the 2 bears to survive, as Angela was very kind to point out, was a single goose. One goose who was actually caught by one Mr. Dugan. How Mr. Dugan caught the goose, I'm not entirely sure.
Mr. Dugan caught a goose, doodah.
Doodah.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, this isn't even the most ridiculous thing of the things that happened in Niagara, but this was the first really ridiculous thing done for publicity in Niagara Falls. Like, could you imagine, we're going to send an old boat filled with animals over the falls for entertainment. Now, mind you, at the same time period, a little bit later in history, the history of entertainment in the 1800s is really weird because you have things like the Michigan, blowing up steamships for fun, crushes, where they would just, the crash at Crush, where they just send 2, steam trains barreling towards each other to crash into each other. And these were dangerous and incredibly bad, and people actually died as a result of some of these very poor decisions. Not on the Michigan, but luckily the Michigan, no humans were harmed. I mean, still horrible people, bunch of animals, very not the opposite of what we'd call a publicity stunt. But it wasn't like some of these train things. It was a wild time. I should know, I was alive back then. Peter was too. We weren't alive for the Michigan, but our parents told us about that one. Yeah. We were alive. I was alive for the crash at Crush. I was alive. Listen, I was but a wee lad, but I was there when Sam Patch and the Yankee Leaper was.
The American Revolution was a terrible disturbance, and it bothered me all through high school. So.
We have a lot of fun here, folks. As you can tell, we like to make jokes about how old we are, even though I'm just a font of really old information. And as our dear kiddo friend Julian would say, Peter's older than the dinosaurs themselves.
But he always played this one sound effect.
Old and ugly.
from the Wizard of Oz.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember my father, he passed at 96, and when I called him up, I was 36. I said, Dad, I'm half the life expectancy of the average male. And he says, you're twice as old as I thought you'd live. And he hung up. And he called me back, but he got me on that one. Checking for any kind of, I must be having some trouble finding images.
I mean, there's not a lot of images about them. I mean, this was before cameras, Peter.
Yeah, but there were drawings that were put in.
There was a handful of drawings about the Michigan, because especially when they were like, we're going to really sell this. Angela said she was also there when the Michigan went over, and I believe her. Considering she has the story so locked tight, I think she was
younger than that.
Angela was there. Angela was there. She has a time machine. We know that. Some of the secret to being a good tour guide in Niagara Falls is to have a time machine or know somebody who, if you use a time machine more than 5 times a year, it's better to buy than lease. I really only use one about once or twice a year, so I generally lease. Do you lease or do you purchase your time machine?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I bought it a long time ago. The warranties even, I keep getting calls about your time machine's warranty, Your time machine's warranty, it's about your time, we're trying to reach you, No, I don't need any help, but it runs beautifully.
Yep. Angela also said that she owns her time machine. Please tune in. This is the most serious question I have on this entire show. Do you lease your time machine or do you own your time machine? Give us a comment over on the Facebook feed. Like, I want to know. Like, I genuinely, I should probably just make this like a poll or something later. Like, do you, and anyone who hasn't watched the episode is going to be like, what are they talking about?
I know.
That's most of our shows.
We should put in a commercial for the TARDIS. Anyway.
We can't afford that.
Oh, Angela points out she owns hers as well.
Yes. So that's three people that own, nobody. Oh no, I lease. I used to own. My old one broke down, now I lease.
Angela gave me a brilliant idea, but warranties never expire because you just go back in time before it expires. But what if you can't go back in time because it's broken and it should have been under? Oh, never mind.
Ooh.
You know something though, in all seriousness, what you're talking about there is actually really true. The tour guides who bring so much to the table, like Angela, really do transcend an era. They're not a person of 2023 standing there and talking about this waterfall. They're someone who sort of places themselves in the boots of a French explorer who first saw it, and of a settler who came here and moved to Suspension Bridge to have a new life from Europe, and what it was like for an entrepreneur or a businessman or a stunt person when they looked at the falls and said, wow, I could do this, They put themselves in place, kind of in their shoes, and I think that's really cool. And Angela, I give you a lot of credit for that, and a number of other guides are very much the same as yourself, because today, if you remember, I had a pile of clients looking at you just thinking how cool you looked,
Yeah, it was kind of a joke. We were like, okay, because some of the things about being like, if you're guiding or like some of the specific things that I do in the park and stuff, you have to kind of be seen. The goal is to, especially depending upon where you are, where you're having customers meet you, you want them to be able to find you easily. That's why some tour guides, they wear red shirts. Some tour people, like, they always find something. They have little flags. They find something distinctive. My bit for the day was, I decided the great experiment was, what if I wear a pith helmet? Will people be able to find me, like, and recognize and be like, he's probably who we need to talk to today if I'm wearing a pith helmet? And it turned out that it worked even more so than I thought it would. A lot of people were coming up to me, either asking about tours, asking questions. Like, everyone that needed to find me was able to find me, and people that didn't need to find me still found me. Like, it was so, now I understand why tour guides wear crazy hats. Like, we wear many, many hats. All as tour people in the industry, we make the joke, oh, we wear a lot of hats. We literally wear a lot of hats.
Well, I'm going to show you on the scene today. If you remember, we cut this little video with my family from Australia, but something is that the aspect ratio is out a bit.
We've been stretched wide.
There you go. Oh, well, we're still going to show it. Set the scene. Hang on, let's get this. I want to get the volume up. Hang in there. Now, what you're seeing is Nico, yes, out of aspect. But
I'm very wide in the park. As you see in the park, we're a little wider than usual.
Well, that's good. Hang on a second here. Where's our audio? Because I want people to hear this. So I had a family from Australia this morning, and they were yep, there. I guess we're at full volume. So the family came back, and we were about to do Cave of the Winds, and we encountered Nico. So I asked him to chat with my family for a moment, and I videoed him as he asked them how their day was.
How was your Niagara Falls experience?
Yay!
All right. One more time.
Yay!
Yeah, they had a great time today, and they really took to what you were wearing, and just the fact that you don't just wear this stuff, like what you're choosing to put on, but you're very comfortable in it.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I feel like that's true, like, with anything, if you're in the tourism industry, is part of our job is people are coming here, and we've talked about this before a lot on the show, that people are coming here for an experience. Your Niagara Falls experience. That's why it's called your Niagara Falls experience. They're coming here for this amazing experience at the waterfall. But what are they doing beyond just the waterfall? They're making memories. And some of the best ways to make memories are some of the simplest things. And we talk about that, I talked at the Carousel Museum with wooden nickels, and I talked about, when I go to the Finger Lakes, and it's like the little, weird, quirky things that you remember, like, oh, it was raining that day, but they had ponchos ready, or, oh, I was over here, and there was a guy in a top hat. When during winter, during Jingle Falls, I'm usually walking around and dressed like a caroler in a big top hat and a bow tie and this big overcoat and everything. And a lot of people are like, well, do you work for someone? I'm like, I don't actually. I was just, I'm just here in the spirit. Now, for this specific instance, I actually, this part isn't part of the job. Working is part of my job, but I wanted to make sure, especially in the last couple of days, that, it's been beautiful weather, but there's been people who haven't been able to do the Maid of the Mist. And a lot of people, remember, the boat was expected to open last week, and it didn't. So we have a lot of people in town that were really hoping. They had seen on the website, it looks like they might open, and the boat didn't. And they're a little sad. They have that little bit of sadness, and it's not that their tour is, their trip in Niagara Falls, their vacation is ruined per se, but they're a little sad that, they weren't able to do the boat ride and, do all those things that, that's the thing they wanted to do. So I, was like, okay, I know there's some people that are going to be in the park today, and a lot of them, just around, it might not be having a good time on their vacation, not the best time they could have been having. So I'm like, how do I make the difference? And some of that is, you could just be super friendly and super optimistic and be a little bit of a character. Like, just have fun with it. And if you're having fun and you're showing up, it's hard not to have a good time when the person that you're meeting and, that they're walking up to you and you're like, hey, be on the lookout for me. I'm the guy standing there in a pith helmet, and they're like, we can see, they could find you. They're like, oh, there you are. And they come up, and already they're kind of like, this is cool. And you're like, okay, are you guys happy? And they're like, yeah. And you're like, okay, now let's get you here and let's do this and let's get going. Hey, have you met these guys? And then you have people from other groups coming over and they're like, hey, how are you? I'm like, hey. And that's the one thing that happens with a lot of the tour companies here. Is even though they're all different tour companies, and actually Peter and I work in different organizations, but we're best friends, and all the tour guides, we talked about this with Nick and Marty last week, we're all friends with each other. There's a camaraderie of tourism professionals. All of us, especially those that are doing work within the state park, it's very important for us to all kind of get along, because as long as we're getting all together and we're all working together, things will go well for all of us. There's no competitions. There's no like, oh, this guy, he's the blue team and I'm the red team and we're gonna, fight each other. It's always like, hey, we're all in this together. They're all here to see Niagara Falls and have a good experience. Whether I'm helping make that experience or you're helping make that experience, or we're crossing by and we're making each other's experience as we go by, you're building on top of each other. And as these tour guides, some of the things that I always hear from people is they're like, oh, they get really excited when you're talking to other tour guides with different groups and different companies and things, because they see that, okay, this is real. It's not a fake persona you're putting on to be the nice tour guide, and then, you don't like anybody in real life, and you're just kind of like, you're actually friendly with everybody, with the staff, and I've learned that, everyone in the state park and, with the guides and the park workers and the maid and the cave and all of that, and downtown people, they all kind of start knowing each other, and it becomes this big sort of tourism family. The hotels know each other, and everyone goes, and when you run into each other, you're like, hey, how you doing? How's your family? How was your Easter? And it shows, because you have those little moments where you're passing by each other and you're smiling, waving, going, oh, you doing good? Having a great day. And whoever's around you, all of these people, their spirits are also lifted because they're seeing that you're happy and having fun. They're also going to be happy and having fun. So it's
the spirit of place,
it manifests happiness.
You're absolutely right. I got a picture here from You know, you talked about how people notice you in the state park. This was the first year we did the characters of history. On the right, of course, is me as Augustus Porter. To the young lady in the red, that's Marina Spelterini, first tightrope walk, a woman to tightrope walk. The little girl's my daughter. She was playing Celinda Eliza Whitney on The Three Sisters. Then Annie Edson Taylor and Nikola Tesla, and then Father Hennepin. And then in future years, we used to have Mr. Olmsted, Parkhurst Whitney, the Great Blondine, the first tightrope walker. He was male. But yeah, people noticed this and they saw us. And one of the best parts of this program was that's how I got to know a lot of the tour guides. We would always interact with them and always try and know their name and like, oh, Lenny or oh, Angela, like you know, it's good to see you. And that when people see recognition between guides and workers, they feel it's a fun place. You're right. The spirit of the place is pretty incredible when it's got that feel to it for people because they don't feel like, you know, the tour guides are like, oh, it's just another company. And it's, you know, that doesn't happen here very often. You've got really good people working.
And that's it. That is really the great part about Niagara Falls, and the great part of coming to Niagara Falls is you really get to see, especially, and I feel it very specifically on the American side, just because I spend a lot of time on the American side, but you get that feeling of family. And some of that is because here on the American side, Niagara Falls State Park is Niagara Falls State Park. It is a natural wonder. It is aggressively natural. It is hyper-focused on Olmsted's vision. So the people that are in it are also in focus because while you're surrounded by nature, there's not as much of that carnival light thing that, you know, that hype and constant stimulation that you would get. The Canadian side is very stimulating. The Canadian side is very fun, but it is very stimulating. There's always something that you're looking at and going off and some light. And I mean, to the point where they have animatronic carnival barkers on Clifton Hill, which is my favorite thing ever. They are awesome to watch those things go like, hurry into our arcade. But like, you know, when you come over to the American side and there's just this tranquil, you know, piece of just nature, you start focusing on the humanity that's within it. So like Prospect Point, you start looking at like the buskers, the music players, you start looking at the people that are working there, and you realize that these people are, because they're focused on the nature of it all and the serenity and kind of the joy of it all, every person they interact with is going to make or break their vacation that much more. Like it's even more so where the Canadian side, and I mean there's no such thing as a mean Canadian. We've already discussed that. But
we got you fooled.
Oh, I know. But, you know, the thing is, on the Canadian side, if someone's, let's say, not as customer-oriented as you would expect, it's okay because you're usually on your way to the next exciting thing, and there's still something there. You know, you're at the arcade, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're hopping on this train, you're constantly moving because there's so much to see and so much to do, and you have to do this that you're not even focused on that. Half the time, you're not even focused on that trolley driver. You're not focused on that person taking your tickets. But Niagara Falls State Park, the New York side, is a little bit of a slower pace. It's still busy and it's bubbling. There's tons of people. But the feeling of it is still, there's an almost intimacy to it, where like every person you interact with, you could have a conversation with. There's a real sort of, you can make connections, and especially specifically with like tour guides and stuff like that, as we had, you know, Team Nick and Party Marty last week, we had Angela 2 weeks ago. They'll all tell you, when you're spending that kind of quality time, you know, 1 hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours with the same person, it really is an experience where you all get to know each other.
Yes.
And it's really, you know, I always say, you have to be a special kind of person to get into tourism, especially this end of tourism where you're guiding and you're being, you know, a leader where, you know, and that's it. We're all leaders in this, where you are, you know, whether you're leading people, you're leading companies. You could be leading one person on a tour, you could be leading an entire organization. You're still a leader of tourism. And that is something that is so critical and wonderful about being in tourism. It's one of the reasons I decided to get involved in tourism, was that feeling of, you're really doing positive things for people. You're really, you get to immerse yourself in it. And I'm a person, I believe what I say. So the stories I tell, I love these stories. Today I was able to, this was kind of like my trial by fire on some of this, but I was able to talk about Roger Woodward. And like, I've never told that story other than like talking to friends and stuff. I've never told it to a group before. And being able to talk about the miracle of Niagara, like to a group of people who had never heard it before, and you're telling this story and you're watching them and they're just as invested in it. And that's when you realize, our job is to tell a story that we may tell 5 times a day. We may take tickets 10,000 times a day. We have to almost act as if you are the first people that we have ever taken this ticket from. We are the first person that we've ever told this story to, and we're so excited about it. Like, you have to have that, almost that my first week here, and I just got off the boat and this is the land of opportunity feeling. And there's a lot of people in this industry, luckily in Niagara, that still have that feeling, that have the, I love this, and it never gets old. It really, you may have a bad day, but it never gets old.
That's a good way to put it. And you're absolutely right. It's a fresh story every day because of the audience connection. And the people see it, and they, for the first time, and you hear the oohs and ahs. And you're not just talking about a loud thing that someone says. You hear it under their breath. You hear it talking to each other. What they're seeing is just so impressive. And so you can't help but be energized by that. And totally, like, it's always a fresh experience when you have a group on a tour of Niagara Falls. I'm sure any place like the Grand Canyon, etc., they must feel the same way, that the first time you look on it, even the 50th time, you're going to feel that sense of overwhelmed and connection, etc. It's so nice to be in a place where that's what we get every time we walk into work.
And that's it. And one of the things, like we always talk about, is if you're a local and you haven't gone out to the park recently, so I was actually out, I was out in North Tonawanda, and I was talking to some people, and they're like, oh yeah, we went to the falls and did the tourist stuff once a couple of years ago, and I'm like, you live 17 minutes away, like, come on, like, come over again, like, see it, like, really, and spend a day there. Don't just, you can do the touristy things. I always recommend people, like, and I fell into this trap. I didn't ride the Maid of the Mist until I was out of college, and it was actually the same day I did the Maid of the Mist and the Cave of the Winds the same day on a tour in 2018. I had just graduated college, and I was doing a tour, and honestly, I was being made to do the tour because it was part of my job, was to know what these attractions were. And I'd never done them before. And I had lived here my entire life. So that's 22 years of my life spent not riding the Maid of the Mist and not doing the Cave of the Winds. And I had only gone to the state park like a handful of times. Like, for someone who lived in Niagara Falls and was very big into Niagara Falls, I never went to Niagara Falls. And it's like, we make this joke that a lot of locals just never come here to Niagara Falls. And then they come here and they're like, this is really cool. Because you fall into that where you're like, okay, it's just the waterfall, it's touristy, yeah. And then you actually get there. I even had it today, and now I've been in Niagara Falls an obscene amount of times. I work in Niagara Falls. I'm there basically every day. But I was able to go down to Terrapin, and the mist was not kicking up like it usually does. It was like a clean straight across the Horseshoe Falls with the sun hitting it just right and just the water going over. And I just stopped for a moment. And, I had some people next to me and they're like, oh, this is amazing. And I'm like, it really is. It really is. Like, as someone who lives here, even I took a solid beat. I was like, just frozen for a moment, and I'm just like, this is really spectacular.
Wow.
Like, I get it. And you see that, and you're like, I get it. I get why people come here. I get why this is a tourism destination. And I also understand that we don't have to build. It'd be nice to have other things for tourists to do, and we obviously want other things for them to do. but we have an amazing experience here. Like
Yes.
this, like seeing the falls, just on its, I could spend a day just staring at the waterfall. Staring at the waterfall and doing the hiking trails. One day. Doing the Cave of the Winds and the Maid of the Mist, another day. Then my third day, I'll start hitting the tourist stuff. I'll go to the rest of it. I'll hit the aquarium. I'll go to the arcades. I'll hit all the restaurants. I'll start, I'll hop on the Discover Niagara shuttle to go to the Power Vista. I'll go to Old Fort Niagara. I'll head over to Lockport. And then suddenly you've just built a week and a half worth of stuff on something that was supposed to be a day trip because you were, and that's a lot of people that you talk to, they don't have a lot of time here. And they end up regretting not having a lot of time here because they eventually realize, they're like, oh, I didn't realize that there was this much. And they're like, I should have given myself more time. Which is like a pro planning tip for vacations is if you have more days available, give yourself more time than you think. One, because you're going to want that do nothing day. Whenever I went on vacation and I was taking like a week-long vacation, we'd always build in a do nothing day, we call it. And it's not that you're actually doing nothing. You might just crash at the hotel, maybe sit by the pool, but you always want to give your day that's not structured. Because if you structure every single day of your trip, unless you're doing like a day trip in which you want it really structured and planned and organized, if you're doing something, you want to give yourself a day where you can just relax. And maybe you want to revisit something that you did earlier. Maybe you're like, I want to ride this boat again. I want to do the cave again. I was at the aquarium, but, I went there in the afternoon and, I didn't get to see all the exhibits. I want to go back. Oh, I didn't spend enough time over at Old Fort Niagara. Cheeky, Peter. But that's true. Like, you want to give yourself that extra day. So my recommendation, if you're a tourist and you're watching this show, give yourself, no matter where you go, if you're a local planning a vacation, add an extra day to your vacation. Just add an extra day and label it as this is kind of my filler day. This is my extra day. I can afford to take an extra day. It's going to improve my vacation because I'm not going to feel like I had to shotgun the entire thing. Front to back and rush from place to place because it ends up becoming a quest for fun, as they said in National Lampoon. We are on a quest for fun. It's not actually fun anymore. It's mandatory fun time. We're going to have mandatory fun time. We're going to do all of these things and it's going to be very good. My first vacation was like that because my mother got very excited, so she wanted to show me everything. And then she realized, she's like, he's not having fun anymore because it was 100 degrees. And I was like, I don't want to do this. But by the second vacation, we had already seen everything. And I was happy, and at the end, I was happy she did that because I saw a lot more than I would have. But the second time, when we went back to where we were the first time, we were just like, oh, we've already seen everything. So now we could just do what we want to do, which was really great. That's why the second trip anywhere is always the best trip. Like the first trip you go, you do all the mandatory fun time things.
Right.
And then the second time you're like, I'm coming back again. That's when you kind of do some of the fun stuff, the things you didn't get to do. And it's a little bit more relaxed and a lot more fun. Niagara is an amazing second trip thing. If you've been to Niagara once, come again. Like definitely, like if you just came back from, like you went to Niagara Falls last year, come back again this year. Like you're gonna see some new things. You're gonna have a more relaxed vacation because you've already seen what you wanted to see. So you're gonna do your favorites again. You're gonna, skip out on the things that maybe you didn't enjoy, or you might say, let's try this again. It might be a little bit different. But that's like kind of and you're going to expand now because you're like, okay, we already did the falls area. Let's take a look at, North Tonawanda. Let's take a look at Old Fort Niagara. Let's take a look at Lockport. Lockport, the hidden gem of Niagara County. No one ever travels 30 minutes to the due east.
Well, a few minutes ago, Angela's been sharing a lot of things here. She mentioned Thomas Welch. I've got a picture of the guy we had playing Thomas Welch. You will not believe how much he looks like Thomas Welch. I couldn't find that one. You've probably seen me here on the screen looking. But she mentioned the Lockport Caves. I've got a couple of pictures of it. Everything she's talking about, the Eternal Flame Trail, I've got that. I've got pictures of that with the flames. And the Lockport Caves are incredible. You're looking at just some quick images of them. And these are not good pictures comparatively to some that I've done, but I just found these rather quickly. You go down to Lockport, and there's just so much to see and do there. You're absolutely blown away by the Erie Canal in Lockport. And it's been preserved so well. And here's an example of the locks in Lockport. And you could take a cruise in the locks and go up and down on them on Lockport Locks, Erie Canal cruises. So Angela's absolutely right. There's so much here. And everything she's put up, I've got pictures of. So I was just regretting not getting a few more images up to show what she's been sharing.
So this goes back to local syndrome. Never did the locks. Never did the Erie Canal cruises. Never did the Lockport Cave. It's on my bucket list. I'm pretty sure now that I've said that, Peter's going to make sure that he drags me to all of them. So I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about in future episodes. But it's always one of those things where I'd be like, yeah, I want to do that, and then never did them. Like, you have that, and it's because, oddly enough, because you're not on vacation, there's no time deadline. So you're like, I'll get to it when I get to it. And then years go by and you still haven't done that, and you're like, I talk about the aquarium. I'm like, well, it's just at the aquarium. I just checked, Peter. The last time I was at the aquarium was 2018.
Oh, wow.
That was the last time I was at the aquarium. Wow. Like, I'm slowly realizing, as much as I talk about these things, I keep forgetting to go to them. What was that photo, Peter?
I didn't have to show that one. Yeah, I was just going through photos. Of, like, I've got 137 photos, 1,000 photos that I've taken. And so I got to show this, folks. This is a great moment in my life when I rode the jackalope in Wall Drug in South Dakota. All right, there you go.
Look at the. I have so many questions.
Well, I know, and some of this is going to change your view of me forever, but...
I don't think there's anything more that could change my view of me than what I've already heard. This is just...
That was a quick shot. I do have my moments, but I'm always amazed because I've been taking pictures everywhere I go, and... I've got so many great pictures. Like, here's one of my favorites out in Murphy Orchards when it was open. And when we were doing reenactments, just moments like that. There's the woman who played Maria Spelterini and Marie Berger. And next to her is my daughter, which is a lot younger. But just beautiful pictures of everywhere we go around here because there's so much going on. And everything changes, too, year after year. You mentioned about coming back. Like, it just gives you a whole different perspective when you see it in different seasons and different opportunities to visit it, etc. So take every opportunity you can. I think that's about it for actual legitimate pictures, though, here. But either way, that was fun. But, yeah, I'm going to bring up, I'll show... Angela's remembering Wall Drug. I'll show the picture of what was it, Thomas Welch next week, and you'll see the actor who was playing him, and the likeness, you'd swear they were twin brothers. So, and look, I even have a friend of ours. Watch this one. And this is the kind of person I am. I like taking pictures of my friends. There's our friend Caleb.
I know that guy.
Yeah. And he just projecting and connecting with people, and you could see his group is really focused on him.
I know that spot, too.
Yes. I think you know it very well.
No.
Well, we're at 7:55 right now. Angela, it's been great having you with us here tonight. What else is there? There's what's coming up in the near future. I know I've got a guest who came here a while back. The one I was mentioning who was going to try and be on with us. She wants to come on now. She had a mix-up the night we were supposed to have her on by video, but she was the one who came here with a company that sells vacations in to a resort in North Carolina, and they sold 5 times as much as they needed to when they came to the Buffalo Home Show. But she loved her experience here, loved her opportunity at the Falls. So we're going to get more people like that. We've got some guests coming in. You've got a colleague who's going to grace us with her presence?
Yes, we do. We do have a featured guest. Unfortunately, she couldn't be on this week. She was going to be. She really wanted to be. Unfortunately, things just didn't line up. But she is. We're working her into the schedule to be on in the next couple of weeks. She's going to be a lot of fun. I'm not going to do any spoilers. This is a spoiler-free zone, but she is going to be a lot of fun. A few other people I know that I've been kind of chatting with idly. One of the things we're looking to do as time goes on, there's a lot, festival season is approaching, which is really great. One of the cool things is they may not always be live shows, but if you follow our Facebook page, there's going to be snippets of things. Like there's going to be probably like little quick cut videos and stuff and things that we'll talk about on the show, but also we'll share day of. Because as festival season approaches, the one weird thing about my job right now is that I do not work on Sundays. For the first time in a very long time, I have Sundays off. And considering a lot of the events that happen around here are weekend events, the ability that I'll just be able to kind of, take my day on Sunday and head to some of these. I'm very excited to go to the Olcott Pirate Festival. I haven't gone since pre-pandemic, actually. I love the Pirate Festival up in Olcott.
Do you remember what's a pirate's favorite letter? What's a pirate's favorite
I'm not
letter?
falling for your tricks, Peter.
Oh, most people guess the R, but it's the C. Anyway.
This is why I don't fall for your tricks, Peter.
Yeah, Angela got it. Angela got it. She wins tonight's prize, which is 1 minute in Nico's hat.
Honestly, that might actually be like our future. Like you have to. I think the rule is you have to wear a fun hat. If you're going to be on our show now, the new rule, if you're going to be on the show, you have to wear a fun hat.
Yeah.
We have fun hats available if you decide, you don't have your own. Oh, that reminds me. How's Sel Magley Stadium coming along?
Coming along great. We're covering, our Vox Sports is covering the Niagara Power this year. And we're going to have a night where it's our night to host and be part of it. So we'll do our show from there. And, this is my great Gazoo hat. I don't know if you ever saw the Flintstones. I want to get 2 antennae that come out here.
I saw the Flintstones. I took Flintstones vitamins as a kid. Yes, I'm quite familiar. And it's spitting image. Spitting image.
All right, the great Gazoo. Well, my closing comments are pretty simple. I'm going to be getting over to Canada more in the near future. I was going over a lot because of the availability of the Canadian boat. And our good friend Kevin Hutchinson and family with his wife Crystal and Zack Attack are geared up to cover Fort Niagara for us this year. So much in line with what you said. We'll have updates on our site that will allow us to show you what's going on at Fort Niagara, hopefully in advance as well. And we've got lots of graphics and video from previous years so we can do promos for upcoming events, and Kevin will do the coverage for us. But, folks, have a great week. Get down to the falls if you can, or get to any park in the area. And over to you, Nico, for the final comments for this week.
The final comments for this week. Your secret code phrase of the week is Michigan. If you comment Michigan, you won't get anything, but people will be very confused if they didn't watch the episode. So just go out there and just type the word Michigan. Do it on your regular Facebook page. Do it on your Twitter. Do it on your Instagram. I'm not keeping track of it. I'm telling you right now, you won't win anything. But it'll confuse a lot of people, and they'll ask you, what's your thing with Michigan? Are you going to Michigan? And you can tell them the story of sending a bunch of animals over on a gussied up fake pirate ship. And that will be your story that you get to share. And maybe you'll meet new friends that way. I know I did. But in all seriousness, folks, as always, it's been great having you. We look forward over the next couple of weeks. We're going to have, a bunch of different guests on in this. There'll be a lot of entertaining things. Hopefully we get Angela back, because at this point she's just, I think she's our color commentator and also our translator, because a lot of our jokes are just like playing 5D chess, and I think we need Angela in the comments to go, oh, they're speaking tourism. I got it. I can translate this for the normal people. But, folks, it's been so great having you here. For your Niagara Falls experience, I'm Nico, the American, joined by Peter, the Canadian. And please have a wonderful night and enjoy this great weather.